Hi, this is Mehdi,
Hey, this is Fran.
and this is Total Tactics Football. Fran, Barcelona got their third win in a row as they beat Granada 4-0 away from home. How did Ronald Koeman set up today? And is this a sort of formation that he's sticking by with?
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is once again the same formation that they put out versus Bilbao, and I think yeah, Barcelona have found a structure here and an ability to kind of play this sort of possession football as well as incorporate Griezmann at times on the left. And what you see actually is that the way Barcelona play in this 4-3 structure is that they're very right side dominant, and I think a lot of it also actually relies on the fact that now you have a player like Dembele who's growing into form. While he is still a little bit erratic, it's more about the directness that he brings as a winger. And basically at times, up top, instead of being a 4-3, you have Griezmann kind of drifting centrally. And then Alba is someone who will provide the kind of overlap on the left. Whereas on the right, you have this kind of partnership now building between Dembele and Dest.
No, you're right. And talking about that partnership, I think that's something they've been missing this season. We know Alba and Messi link up a lot on the left, and you get that partnership there. But on the right, they haven't been able to sell down on someone as the starter there. Fatih had been really well, playing well as a winger on the left, but they've been sort of missing that right winger because Messi either plays number 10, moves in, changes positions. And I think Dembele, coming back from injury and starting to find some sort of form is giving a good reason for Ronald Koeman to play him often there. He provides that sort of directness, a man who's able to carry the ball, run on the counter, provide some sort of speed, inject some speed into this Barcelona side that sometimes feels lacks a bit of that. And I think that's in the absence of Fati. And I think that's a positive sign. And like having another fullback like Dest, who's understands how to overlap with his winger, who will cut in, provides that sort of partnership there, and you can spread the game out wide a bit, and you're able to create more chances, open up teams that will look to sit deep and try to cause you problems. And it's easier for people like Messi then to able to find passes and open up play.
I agree with that as well. And what you can see, of course, with Dest is he provides this underlapping run. So it's the opposite of Alba, where he kind of cuts inside, and then Dembele is actually, on the contrary, allowed to kind of push out further and then or drive the ball down the wing to crack a shot. And that space is what Dembele occupies. And you see it for that kind of goal that they scored, the fourth goal, where Dembele is sat in a position, free in space, allowed to kind of chip that ball into Griezmann, who moves and takes the touch perfectly and kind of slots that in the net. But it's now you can see that they're kind of clear established positions. And I think, Barcelona doesn't necessarily need to play like a symmetrical structure on the pitch. It's clear that you have some weaknesses and strengths. And I like the fact that Koeman is sticking with this formation because at the least now, of course, we've seen perhaps slightly weak opposition lately, but this is at least a style where we can see Barcelona consistently produce goals. And I think, when we go to talk about how Barcelona have struggled lately, it's really been, for example, collapses in the midfield's ability to kind of support the defense, and also just defensive mistakes that we wouldn't expect, a top class side to have. And what I will say today is that Umtiti played absolutely uh, fine. Araujo's absence was one that people thought would have been missed, but Umtiti, of course, is a name that has been around forever, and we know, of course, of the kind of unfortunateness of his injury. But today, he put in a fantastic game, many solid tackles, and it shows, this is what Barcelona needs in terms of when they play versus these counter-attacking sides that try to hit you with this kind of, kind of glory counter-attack, and his ability to kind of shut down things alongside Mingueza is fantastic, and something that needs to continue going forwards. What do you think about the role of Busquets? Because this has obviously been a hot topic. It's one where people consider either his role to not work, but he still played in this kind of back three at times where he slotted in as a sweeper and then also kind of offered this kind of ball progression as a centre back.
Well, I mean, I think we've seen with Busquets over the years, he's been dropping in deeper because of his lack of physicality, and he's trying to use his footballing brain to Barcelona's advantage. And against lesser oppositions, he's able to sort of, when he's not pressed, he's able to. We know he has the footballing brain to be able to dictate the game in the back, control, recycle the possession. And I am some kind of surprised that Granada didn't look to really target him when they were pressing, and that could be a key for oppositions to sort of destabilize Barcelona's midfield. Because if you take him out of the equation, they can lose balls in a very dangerous place, and from there you can start counters and build the momentum. But Busquets was able to sort of find a good partnerships with Umtiti, Pedri, and Jong come drop deep and support him to create those passing triangles. And Busquets, obviously, as we know, with his ability, is able to just shift the ball out of defense and let those two youngsters with the physicality and the sort of drive to take the ball forward. I think for one thing for me that really interests is how Ronald Koeman is now starting to get the best, you could say, in a better performances out of out of Antoine Griezmann. How do you see him being fit into this situation? And how is this sort of bringing a better striker out of him?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, it's like in this left wing space, he doesn't really play like that. As the formation kind of plays out, he almost plays as the sole striker. When Messi is allowed to drop deeper, and what I like now is you have a player like Pedri who moves forwards and kind of links up with Messi in a way where when Messi drops deep, Pedri is the one who moves forward and then kind of keeps this kind of structure and shape for the side. And this also allows Griezmann, conversely, to also hold defenders back, as that center forward. And then let's say when Pedri kind of takes the space, when Messi drops deep, you have that kind of chemistry there. And then you still have someone, deep into the counter attack who can provide space. And for me, Griezmann's ability to link up has been consistent throughout his time in Barcelona. It's always just been about his perhaps confidence in terms of finishing. And what I saw today, at least, is these perfect one-touch takes. And sometimes it's just about confidence, having the ability to make this first touch and then shoot off the volley or whatever it is. That's kind of what Griezmann is expected to bring to the table, and he has. And I think you have to see whether he can continue this form going forwards, because I don't think it's really now a question about positioning, but whether he can actually step up in terms of producing the goals that this Barcelona side needs outside of Messi's production. And yeah, going back to the midfield, I like the relationship between Messi and Pedri, but also, one of the questions that keeps coming up for me is when you watch like Riqui Puig, he is such a great player and someone who could potentially also play in the same position as Pedri, someone who's a visionary, someone who's able to also dribble off the ball and then actually look for a kind of a key play and a key pass. And it's interesting to see that, of course, he plays a very minute role right now in the team, even though for me, he's one of the best players potentially, in the world in that kind of position.
No, I mean, I really like this player. He's able to just beat his defenders really well with his short frame and his, low center of gravity. He's able to swivel out of his way out of trouble. And the fact that he looks up for those passes, he's looking for a penetrative pass to split defenses open. It's sort of like what adds to his game and makes him such a talented player. I mean, obviously the difficulty is here, you've got Frenkie de Jong, an established world-class player. And at the same time, Pedri provides you something off the ball more. And it is a bit hard for Ronald Koeman to put him into this team, because you do need sort of the experience of Busquets at times as well to sort of support that midfield. And it is a big task at hand for Ronald Koeman. He's someone who needs to find a way where he can maybe get more out of Riqui Puig. And I think if they can do that, they can find that balance. He's a top class talent who will give Barcelona so much more. But just touching off before that, we talked about you mentioned Messi's link up there with Pedri and Messi's link up with Griezmann. We saw another game where he got 2 goals and he looked really on song. What is the difference sort of in Messi's performance in the last few games compared to where everyone's talking about him being a little off or maybe disinterested?
I think really it's just how clinical he is at finishing. I think what we've seen from the games where he wasn't able to score, especially early on in the season, it's just spatially he was in the positions that he usually would be, but would be kind of scuffing the shots and he would be underperforming in terms of XG. Now we've seen in the last few matches he's been placing shots, finding angles that are kind of the Messi of old. These perfect finesse shots, these one-touch finishes when he's kind of making these 1-2s. And that's the thing, Messi brings to the table, really just kind of out of this world finishing, and he's shown it tonight. So I think it's fantastic to see him coming back into that kind of prime form. And he really did exploit Granada's midfield today. So you saw Granada playing this 4-2-3-1 structure. They realistically have 2 defensive mids, but when they kind of overcommit on the counterattack, you'll see that in the first Messi goal. There's no one marking him. He is the classic 10 in that position right there. There's not a single midfielder who's tasked with shadowing him. or even zonally kind of around him. They're trying to catch up to the play, and that kind of, for me, was the kind of key difference today. Granada's midfield were overrun. I think De Jong put a fantastic performance as well. But yeah, the ability for one player shows, or an individual player to kind of break Granada's defensive lines in the midfield show, I think, how lopsided this game was in terms of individual quality. And it's good to see that at least Barcelona are able to put out these performances now consistently.
No, you're right.